Thanks for checking in to the State of Basketball Podcast, episode 33. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren Will each and every week, and we're going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball.
If you're here live, thank you for choosing us over House of the Dragon. Both are available for replay, but, HBO, Max, whatever, they make enough money, help out the little guys, right? Everyone's here. The true Indiana State fans are here, right? But, you just want to get into this, Jaren? You want to talk about it? Our 33rd episode.
Yeah, our 33rd episode. Coincidence? Maybe not.
Maybe fate.
Yeah, I border on fate, but really excited episode today. We've got brand new head coach to Indiana State, Coach Graves. All season long, everyone heard us talk about how big of fans we were of Indiana State. We followed them extremely close. They had an incredibly fun season, and we were kind of bummed on how the season ended. And by kind of, I mean we were really bummed on how the season ended, but got the chance to get a hold of Coach Graves pretty much right off the bat, and got him here, and we're really excited to kind of talk to him and pick his brain a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about. We're going to dive into a little bit about last season. Talk about what that was like from someone inside the program, and then we're going to spend a lot of time talking about him and this season, because I'm sure a lot of the people here are wondering a little bit about Coach Graves. What's he's like? What could we learn about him? So let's bring him in here. Let's get this thing started, man.
All right, Coach Graves, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you guys. That was it's really good. Episode 33. That's I think that's a lot of irony in that. Well planned, well thought out.
Meant to be.
Yeah, a funny story, when we recruit players here, we'll tell them one thing that you guys don't have to worry about is being the best player that ever played here. And the parents usually get a big chuckle out of that. And we kind of circle back with the player and basically say, if you end up being the best player that ever played at Indiana State, everyone's going to be really, really happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great pitch, because, there's big shoes to fill.
And the other thing is, we also say that for coaches here too. You never have to worry about being the best coach that was ever here, because a guy a long time ago by the name of John Wooden coached here. So, if you're all right being the best coach or best player, you've had one heck of a career.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, a lot of history at Indiana State, obviously. Have not had a chance. I know it just opened recently, was the Larry Bird Museum. Have you made it down there yet?
Yeah, it was. It was awesome when they had the opening, and I was very fortunate to be on the select list to get in and see a sneak preview of it, and didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time in there, but I think you could go in there and spend hours and hours, and it's really cool. A lot of history, a lot of memorabilia from high school to the college to the pros, the Olympic team. So it's got a little bit of something in there for everybody, and it was a really great day for the Indiana State community and the fans. Outside was packed with people, and they were there obviously to hear Larry, see Larry speak, and it was just it was a great day. The weather was perfect. I did forget my hat that day, so my head got a little red. I didn't have as nice a hat as you have on there, but I needed it bad that day.
Yeah, we want to get down. And obviously catch a game or two down at Holman, but we definitely want to stop by that museum while we're there.
Let's put that on your bucket list for sure. It's great, and people should come down and really check it out, and do it on game day. Get double dip, see the museum, see the Sycamores play, and just have a great weekend, afternoon and evening.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into this. Like I said, kind of at the top, we're going to talk a little bit about last year, but if you're an Indiana State fan, you obviously know a lot about the last year's season. You know how it went. But that's going to lead us into this year. We're going to talk about you a lot. So let's just start. So at the end of last year, the IUPUI job opened up, and we thought that you would be a candidate for that job once it came available. Now, we're not plugged into this at all. We didn't know if it was being floated just on Twitter or if you were, they were approaching you or whatever. But so we were kind of like, okay, maybe Coach Graves would be a good candidate for there. But then Indiana State opened, and we were like, okay, no. He'd be a really good option here at Indiana State. So how did that process kind of play out? Did you make it clear early that you wanted to stay at Indiana State, or how did that whole kind of job situation go for you?
No, that's a great question. It was a very stressful few weeks because, anytime, and I know we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, in my background being at South Alabama, but kind of fast forward, that the IUPUI job opened up very early in the process, and I was approached if I would have interest in looking into that job, and I did look into it. Went through a couple rounds of interviews, and as it was going along, though, it was kind of timing up with the feeling that the Indiana State job may open. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of that fine line. Okay, the old bird in the hand. If you get offered the job, do you take it and then back out or whatever the case might be? But fortunately, I think things work out for a reason. Ultimately, IUPUI did a great job hiring Paul Casaro. He's really earned that opportunity. He's done a great job he did a great job at UIndy. I think he'll do a fabulous job at soon to be IU Indianapolis. I guess I got to get used to saying that.
I know. It's gonna be a switch.
Yeah, that'll be a switch for all of us. But it's one of those deals, though. Being a Division I head coach those jobs are hard. There's only 363 of them, and let's be real candid. You can knock off about 250 of those that I would never be a candidate for, nor or some combination of nor would I want to take that job.
Right.
So
right.
At the end of the day, you're looking at 50, 60, maybe 70 jobs that you would even kind of get on the same page as far as, okay, I could do that. It works well. And, obviously with IU PUI at the time, it did fit a lot of things. It was in the Midwest. It was in the Horizon League, which, I played and coached in that league. So, I certainly wanted to kick the tires on it and see where that went. But through that process, what it really did was it really made me more convinced that I knew I was in the right spot at Indiana State. I knew we had something special going, and at that time didn't know if Josh was going to leave or not this season. But in the future, you felt like that there could be that opportunity where he was going to, make that move. And that was really kind of rewinding 3 years ago when I left Xavier to come to Indiana State initially. That was kind of the biggest reason I felt like I had a chance to help Josh, make that adjustment from Division II to Division I. And if we had a lot of success, I would put myself in a position, to become a head coach again at a great fit for me. And, ultimately, I don't think, and again, this is nothing against the IU Indianapolis job, but the opportunity to coach in the Missouri Valley and be in the Wabash Valley area, that fit me a lot better than what IU Indianapolis would have. Now, the truth be told, it would have been tough if I would have been offered that job to say no, because you never know, what's going to happen in the timing. But, fortunately for me, timing worked out really well here with this job, and I'm excited to be a Sycamore.
Yeah. We think that it, both positions worked out. I mean, number one, unless you wanted to, and unless he wanted to, neither of you guys had to move. You could stay in your house.
Well, I'll tell you what, we could spend about 20 minutes talking about my life journey on that. My family actually does live in Indianapolis.
Oh, really?
Okay.
And it's long, kind of a long story, but when I took the Evansville job, we moved to Evansville from South Alabama. We were there for a year, and I just felt like at Evansville it just wasn't the right fit. And I didn't think it was going to end well with the staff that was there, and had an opportunity to go to Xavier with a good friend of mine, Travis Steele, and also be at the high major level and coach there. So that job didn't open up till the summer. So on basically August 1st, or a few days before that, I ended up taking that job. My family stayed in Evansville, and I lived over in Cincinnati in a rental. And the next year, COVID hit. And we decided as a family that long-term, Cincinnati wasn't going to be where I ultimately was going to stay. So we weren't going to pick up and move the family again. So during COVID, we decided to move to Indianapolis. My wife's from the south side of town. We kind of made that our home base. And the stress level of my two daughters at the time, they were going to be going into 8th grade and going into their freshman year, was really high.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure you've talked to other coaches, and that some people understand, but a lot of people don't, just the stress that moving has on a family, especially in the basketball world. And so once we told our two daughters that, hey, you guys are staying put, you're going to graduate high school here, dad will figure it out. We'll be close by. And, fortunately, one more year at Cincinnati, and then moved over to Indiana State for the last, going on 4 years, start of year 4 now. It's worked out really well. I get home about 3 times a week, drive back in the mornings. My oldest daughter is graduating this year, and she's going to go to IU. And my youngest daughter will be a senior. Nice. So one more year there. And then, my wife will move here to Terre Haute, and we'll find a house. And hopefully in about 15 years from now, we'll have played in a few NCAA tournaments.
Yes.
And I'll retire a very happy former head coach at Indiana State.
That would be incredible. So, I mean, if you add that layer to it, probably was an even harder decision when that job came up.
Yeah, it made it different. But, I think, one thing though, Paul and I are actually really good friends, and it was kind of interesting going through, the process. We were both interviewing, and we'd both, call and talk to each other and, hey, how's it going? Did you have a good interview? And different things like that. And, ultimately, I think we're going to try to play each other, and I know one of the topics that we'll talk about, later in this interview is scheduling. And I told Paul, I said, look, this year I can't do it the way the schedule worked out. It just doesn't fit. But, in the future, let's start a home and home series. And, they're building that new arena, downtown. And I said, look, I'll bring our Indiana State team, to play in your new arena, so you can have a Missouri Valley team, come in there. And I think it'll be good, for the state. Selfishly, it helps us because we want to recruit, the Indianapolis area. So, we get a game there in Indianapolis. So I think it's a win-win for college basketball fans too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess you heard it here first, folks. Expect an Indiana State, IU, Indiana, or Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Home and home.
Yep. We're going to play. We'll get it worked out. I think Paul will get that thing turned around, and I think he'll have that team, competing at the top of the Horizon League. And again, I think it's a great opportunity for us to get in that Indianapolis market.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Indianapolis market. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, right? So last season, very successful season, right? NIT runner-up, outright MVC champions, runner-up in the Valley tournament, finished 38th in KenPom, the 13th best offense, the best 2-point percentage in college basketball, the second best free throw percentage, and then 11th from 3. Like I said, last year, very successful. For those who were paying attention to the Sycamores, and we knew it was possible. I think we said it from first game of the season, but there were a lot of people that were surprised. It was, Indiana State was a name that a lot of people were shocked to start, to hear about. So what were your and the team's expectations and hopes for this past season?
Well, I think anytime you go into a season, there's always that adjustment. We lost a lot of guys the year before, off a 23-win team playing in the CBI in the postseason, but we did have a core group of guys coming back. Julian Larry, Jason Kent, Mr. Goggles, Robbie coming back, and Xavier Bludson. So you had 4 guys, and if you fast forward ahead, kind of our cheat code, we really only played 6 guys all year. So when you think about it, 67% of our, scoring, rebounding, and assist, was really back. And you add 2 dynamic guards in Isaiah Swope and Ryan Conwell, and it was really lightning in a bottle. We had 4 guys that, what we talk about in Coach Schertz always said this, having that corporate knowledge of how we want to play offensively. And it takes time, to develop that. And with those 4 guys helping teach, the rest of the team, and then we added those pieces in Isaiah and Ryan, our offense became so dynamic, and those pieces, fit about as well as you could have. And, with Robbie and Xavier Bludson, those 2 really made it go, because those are 2 of the best, not only in the Missouri Valley, but in the country at passing the ball as bigs. And when you can do that and have 2 guys, you have a chance to have an incredible offense.
Our favorite offense to watch last year, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just seeing, the way you guys shot the ball, just like how the game opened up for the team. And then you add in like Isaiah Swope's ability to just go nuclear at any point in time. He just might drop 20 straight points on you.
Well, and I think the other thing is all those pieces, those guys bought into what they did really well. Jason Kent took his game to, I don't even know a word for another level, another level. It was incredible what he was able to do by simply just buying into his role. And, first and foremost, his role was to be the best cutter in the country. And he more than proved that. It was great to, you could get 6 points a game from him and not run a single play, just because of how hard he ran the floor, how hard he cut, the way he rebounded the ball. And then Julian Larry, that kid is the ultimate definition of a self-made player. I had, the pleasure of witnessing that, being around him for, the last 3 years. And, I would come in the mornings and walk on the treadmill or do something in the gym, and he's in there at 7 a.m., whether it's working on his ball handling, working on his 3-point shooting. He is a self-made player, and, he'd come in and get 2 or 3 extra workouts per day. And there'd be days I'd come in there on game day, to go work out on the treadmill, and he would be in the gym that morning working for about 30, 40 minutes on maybe his floaters or maybe his free throws. And that's on a game day. And that kid, I'm so happy for, the way it ended here for him and the success that he had. He did graduate, and that's what, that's the thing that people need to understand, especially with Julian and Jason Kent. They both got their degrees from Indiana State. And, if it wasn't for COVID, their careers would be over right now. And so for them to be able to take advantage of that opportunity and, play at the high major level and, see what happens and see if they can, execute and really give themselves a different platform, to further help their career. I'm a big Julian Larry and Jason Kent fan. And, when I watch Texas, this season, I'm going to be rooting for those guys.
We will too. It's anytime we talk to anyone that, whether they transferred or any other coaches, we're all in on any guys that if they transfer, like they're more than likely doing what's best for them long term. and we're going to support them because we loved watching them this past season. So
yeah, and I think it's, people always say, you've heard the line, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and that's true. Because some kids do, transfer for the wrong reasons, but in this case with those two guys, again, getting their degree, they earned their stripes here, and they were given that opportunity and that platform, and financially, and I don't really want to go into that on this, but it was a complete no-brainer for the amount of NIL compensation those guys are going to get. And like I said, I'm cheering for them. They got a big fan here in Terre Haute, and to be honest, the truth is, those two guys are part of the reason that I'm sitting in this chair right now. And I'm thankful that, I was able to coach them, and, we did well, and, they were able to better themselves, and, I was able to better myself, moving over one seat, and, a big part and a big thank you, as part of it are those two guys.
Yeah. We talk and hear a lot about people who are happy that their players have moved on because they're doing what's best for them. The same way another coach would move on to a, better job or a better situation, like you saying, I'm going to be cheering for them just shows that you're a quality guy who cares more about the person than, I guess, winning basketball games at the end of the day, because you can win basketball games with anybody, but those guys played their way into, being some of the hottest recruits in the country this offseason. And, you being there and supporting them just, I'm sure, means a lot to them too.
Yeah. What's funny is, today being Father's Day, Julian's mom reached out to me. So that was great to,
that's awesome.
Get a message from her. But again, that's what this is about. Ultimately, my job as a coach and why I got into coaching was, to help young men grow, develop, and, reach their goals. And, certainly in the case of, Julian and Jason, they got their degree, and they have an opportunity to go and do something that they believe will help better them long term. And, hey, who are we to say that that's not the right thing to do? So
exactly.
Like I said, I'm going to be their biggest fan, or one of their biggest fans here in Terre Haute, and hopefully they'll have a great year.
So we need to talk about kind of the end of this season here, because there was a lot of talk in Indiana and a lot of talk nationwide. I mean, Pat McAfee had Robbie Avila on. I mean, everyone was cheering for the Sycamores. You were America's team, and the Missouri Valley, Arch Madness happens, and you guys just barely are unable to, unable to win against Drake. And because of that, you guys did not hear your name on Selection Sunday. So how did the team take that?
It was very difficult. Even going into Missouri Valley meetings a couple of weeks ago, we talked about scheduling and how to put the league in a better profile to get multiple bids and things like that. The truth of the matter is we just got a little bit of bad luck that last 36 hours with, about 5 things happened.
Yeah.
And we were down to, if only 2 of those things would have happened, we would have been the last team in. But, all 5 of those things happened, and it's never happened before. We had a representative that was at the Missouri Valley that's big into the analytics and big into the scheduling piece and different things like that. And, they went through it, and, they have knowledge of what the committee was thinking and different things like that. And, we were in with 36 hours to go, and, just a run of bad luck. And
there were so many bid stealers this year.
5 right there at the end. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, that's the unfortunate thing. It's out of your hands.
Mm-hmm.
You put together a great resume, and, the hardest part is being able to schedule, your way into the NCAA tournament as an elite mid-major. It's really difficult because you just can't always get the games that you need for that to happen. And scheduling is just such a tricky deal. And it's gotten so much harder, even in the last 5 years. It's become really difficult. I've done scheduling, for over 20 years, going back to when I was an assistant at Butler. I was in charge of our scheduling. I did it at South Alabama, and, doing it here, it's such a dicey deal. You got so many things working against you at the mid-major level. And, ultimately, and my motto hasn't changed, I'm going to play anybody, anytime. The anywhere gets a little tricky because I do, and our fans, and for revenue, we do like to play in the Holman Center. I can't play 11 road games. So that's where it gets tricky. And to get Power 5 opponents to the Holman Center is next to impossible. It doesn't mean we won't make the calls, because we will. We'll make the calls. We'll ask. We'll try to work relationships, but it's really difficult. And I think the fans got to see why. In that NIT run, beating 3 straight Power 5 schools, on our home floor, and the crowd, the people were unbelievable. Our first game against SMU, we don't win that game. If we're on the road, we are not winning that game. But our fans and the atmosphere in the Holman Center really willed our guys, to win that game. And once we won that first one and got rolling, obviously, kind of the history spoke for itself there.
Yeah, let's talk about that kind of NIT run, because obviously you knew if bid stealers happened, you were going to not make the NCAA tournament. It all was, how the cards fell, right? And you guys end up being a 1 seed in the NIT, which means you're hosting 3 games. You're hosting 3 games, if you win. So what was your guys' approach to the NIT?
Well, again, after that initial shock, guys were disappointed. They were devastated. You play all year long to, see your name on Selection Sunday. And, that is a huge blow. I've been on that side of it. In 2002, we had a Butler team that was good enough to play in the Sweet 16 that year. And we were the last team out that year. And that's a hard locker room, to be in, a really hard locker room. But, like that 2002 team and like our team this year, you've got guys that have such great competitive character, and they did not want their season to be remembered. You got left out, you go play in the NIT, and, there's some schools that won't even play. Think about all the teams that opted out and basically took their ball and went home. And, our guys didn't want to do that. They didn't want to go out like that. And our practices, leading up to, our first game were very good, very competitive. The guys kept talking about, let's show the world, the committee, that we belonged. And, that was basically the mantra every day. Let's show people, what could have happened. And, as we gained momentum, obviously we became a national story. And, for the recruiting piece, it's great. Every time we played, it's like a 2-hour infomercial on ESPN. And, it was, again, kind of like earlier when we were talking about our roster, with our 6 guys that played a lot of minutes, those pieces that fit so well together. Well, just, you think about the path, to play 3 home games as a mid-major school against Power 5s. And then, you don't, the question, I actually got this question by a reporter. I don't remember which one, but he said, now, are you sad that you guys aren't going to get to go play in Madison Square Garden, but you get to play in Hinkle Fieldhouse? And I could do it. Took everything not to strangle him, but for our fans, if we were in Madison Square Garden, maybe 300, 400 fans might have been able to go and experience that. But for us to drive an hour and 20 minutes up the road to Indianapolis to Hinkle Fieldhouse to see thousands and thousands of, Indiana State Sycamore fans there, you couldn't trade that for anything. And that perfect storm, people are going to be talking about this run, this team forever because of what they were able to do and what they were able to accomplish, in those few weeks, after getting, such bad news. But again, it goes back to, it shows the competitive character, and, you really don't know how well you're going to handle something until you hit that adversity. And, those guys hit adversity, hit it hard, and they were able to come back and really show America what, Indiana State University is all about.
Yeah, I mean, you got two options. You can just throw in the towel, or you can say, you know what, we're going to prove you wrong, and we're going to show you that we did deserve to be in this tournament. And you guys definitely proved that you were an NCAA tournament team. I mean, was it your first game in the NIT? You scored 101 points against SMU. And I mean, you guys obviously weren't playing in the first four, but the first four, Virginia scores 42 points.
Yeah.
And people are like, we got Virginia in instead of 101, like 100 points a game. Like, come on, guys, what are we doing? So we were all like, we were very, very pleased with the NIT run. And I was lucky enough to go to the semifinal game. But we wanted you in the big tournament. But I mean, second place in the NIT is not too bad either.
No. I mean, you're a national runner-up, in a prestigious tournament, and again, though, the NCAA. The sad thing is, and you never know. You have no idea, but we potentially had a team that definitely could have made the second weekend, if not further, in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. But again, it all goes back to, and I've always said this. I've been very fortunate as a coach. Multiple times, a player twice, to have played in the NCAA tournament. And it really does come down to matchups. Mm-hmm. You can get an awful matchup in the first round and be a really good team and be done. Or you could get some favorable matchups, get hot and get rolling. And, the next thing you know, you're in the Final Four. So it really works both ways, but there's no doubt. And I think we proved that time and time again in our run, through the NIT, that, we were one of the top, 20, 30 teams, in the country last year.
Oh, I mean, without a doubt. And I mean, thinking about it too, playing in Hinkle, pretty cool. Like, I'll never get to do it. I would love to have the opportunity, but playing a home, well, I'm going to call it what it was, home game in Hinkle.
It was all
had to have been amazing. Like, I remember watching it on TV and I was like, okay, are there any away fans? Like, are there any non-Indiana State fans here? Because it was just a sea of blue.
Especially with the first game being Utah. Like,
yeah. Well, and we did hang 100 on Utah too, so that was good. But I do think, I hope, I haven't seen, I don't think it's out yet. I do hope they make that move and the NITs again in Hinkle Fieldhouse in the future. Now, hopefully, we're in the NCAA tournament, but I just think, as a basketball fan, especially in the state of Indiana, if you could have the NIT Final Four, every year, or at least every other year, in Hinkle Fieldhouse, I think you're going to get an amazing crowd and an amazing environment. And, obviously part of that was attributed to us being an hour and 15 minutes away. But I you guys know this, the people in Indiana love their basketball, and you get four good teams in there playing, I think you're going to have a pretty good crowd. Maybe not a sellout like we did, but I still think you're going to get a pretty good crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move away from last season and talk about you. right? So you played at Butler, you coached at a few places. We kind of talked about that already. Coached at Butler under an up and coming coach
Yeah,
by the
he's
name of
okay.
Brad Stevens.
Yeah, he's all right.
All
you,
right.
you had your stop at Evansville and Xavier, and then your one head coaching gig at South Alabama. So we're going to talk about your journey as a player, how you got into coaching, and kind of everything that led up to, Coach Graves being the head coach for the Sycamores.
Well, when I had a chance to go to Butler University, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to major in, what I wanted to study. And, I started off thinking about maybe medical school, maybe physical therapy school. And, I got through 2 years of, coursework, and I was in there with pharmacy students and different things like that, holding my own. But I just knew that I really didn't want to do another 4 years of med school or another 2 years of PT school. But I wanted to do something, though, where you were around people and you had a chance to help people and help them grow and develop. And so I stayed in kind of that science chemistry track, and ended up graduating from the College of Education with a chemistry degree.
Okay.
And had a chance to my first 3 years I was in coaching and teaching at the high school level, and I was really spoiled. My first job was at North Central High School with Doug Mitchell, and I'll never forget my time. Every morning, it was my first period prep. I'd go down and hang out with Coach Mitchell, and we'd talk about all kinds of things. And we had a pretty good player that year by the name of Jason Gardner, and went on to win a state championship in year one. So
Nice.
really, really, enjoyed that. I have that ring in my office at home, and a lot of great memories from that team. And then went from there, got a chance to, my wife got a different job, and I had a chance to move and work under another really good coach in Steve Whitty at Ben Davis for 2 years. Learned a lot under Steve, and from there, had a chance to go to back to Butler, worked with Todd Licklider for 6 years. And, my first 2 years, Brad Stevens and I shared basically a small cubicle, and, we were together for 12 years, and, we're a part of a lot of fun, exciting games there at not only Hinkle Fieldhouse, but obviously some really good NCAA tournament runs, coached a lot of great players. And
It's okay. You can tell us now if this was like a Waterboy situation where he stole your notebook with all your plays in it and took all the credit, and it was really you all along.
No, not at all. Not at all. I learned a lot from him every day. So, the one thing about, people ask all the time, what was it like to, work with Brad and be around him on a daily basis? And, for 12 years, being around him, I can't begin to tell you how humble of a guy he is, how collaborative, of a colleague that he is. And, he's still a great friend to this day. And, I'm thankful that, I was able to work alongside of him for 12 years. And, the hardest time I give him is I wish he would have given me just a little bit of a heads up that he was going to take the Celtics job. And I probably would have respectfully declined 4 months earlier the South Alabama job. So, but no, it's everything, again, everything works out for a reason. And, I'm excited to, hopefully see here on Monday night, the Celtics put up banner number 18. Hopefully they get it done. I think they'll get a little bit nervous if they drop that one and head back to Dallas. It could get a little dicey, but I feel like they're in pretty good shape. But it's I've been very fortunate, to be around a lot of really good coaches, and Coach Schertz here, for 3 years. It was like a clinic on offensive basketball that I got a front row seat, to learning that. So I've been very, very blessed along the way in my coaching career.
Work with Brad Stevens for a long time, and then, people have talked about just the offense that you guys put on, and like a younger guy coming in Indiana. Is he the next thing, and with Josh Schertz? And so you've had some really good people that you've worked with, but let's talk a little bit about your head coaching career, because when you got hired, people are, wondering a little bit about you. They were looking into your resume.
Mhm.
And I mean, the criticism that we think is a fair criticism, is when you were a head coach at South Alabama, you were 65-96. Not a great record. But personally, Jaren and I, we don't really see an issue of that, because a bunch of reasons: timing of when you were the head coach, the situation. But what would you say to people who have that criticism of saying, well, he was a head coach already and his record wasn't great?
Yeah,
Why should we support him?
yeah, and that's a very fair point and fair question. And the biggest thing I can say is the fit. Here at Indiana State, obviously, I feel like it's a great fit. If I rewind a little bit, when I took the South Alabama job, I probably was a little bit anxious, because I really wanted to be a head coach, and
Mhm.
they're hard jobs to get. It's really hard. And when Joel Erdman, that was the AD at South Alabama, when he really recruited me hard, and he did a great job of selling me on South Alabama. Had a chance to go down there. The facilities are nice. The people are great. The hard part for me was, as a first time head coach, with a kindergartner and a first grader, moving everybody down there 10 hours away. We didn't have any family support. I did not have any connections to that part of the country.
Mhm.
But I was excited. I was ready. And when I got there, it was a struggle. But we figured some things out. We were able to recruit some pretty good players as time went on. And ultimately, what I learned is I learned how to fail forward. And by doing so, Indiana State doesn't necessarily have to pay for some of the mistakes that I made as a young head coach. And ultimately, being able to have those experiences, I don't regret it one bit. I love my time down there. I look back on it, and we graduated every senior. We went 3 straight years with a perfect APR. We were out in the community. We were doing a lot of the right things. Unfortunately, and this is the reality, and I'm okay with that, and I know that and understand that, you have to win.
Mhm.
You can have great students, you can graduate everybody, you can be out in the community, you can be loved, but you better win some games. And that's the nature of the business, and you have to accept that. And we look back, and there were 2 guys. We had a really good team coming back, which would have been my 6th year there. And I didn't deserve a 6th year. And you look back, and the transfer portal rules were different then.
Right.
If you took a transfer, they had to sit out a full year. And I just think ultimately what caught up to me was the amount of decisions I had to make, with the unfamiliarity with the region, moving my family, figuring out where my kids had to go to school, buying a house, changing that family support. There were a lot of miscellaneous things going on that I really overestimated, or really underestimated how difficult those things were. And you fast forward 5 years to having those experiences at South Alabama, 1 year at Evansville, 2 years at Xavier, a couple years here. I'm a much more seasoned coach than what I was when I went down to South Alabama. I tell people all the time, I was in the Butler bubble. I had an
Mhm.
assistant there, Brock Morris. He would always give me a hard time. He said, "Do you understand how lucky you are to have coached at Butler for 12 straight years, win the number of games that you did, deal with the little problems that you have, it's like you're almost like in fantasy land. He said you were in the 1% of college basketball with what you had to deal with at Butler. He said, welcome to the real world. But but he was right. There was a lot of things that I was naive to. I never thought about worrying about APR at Butler University, and your recruiting network being in such a hotbed in the Midwest. In Mobile, Alabama, we talk about here, Terre Haute. You guys might have heard me say this in the press conference. We want to dominate recruiting in about a 3 to 4 hour circle of Terre Haute.
Yep.
Well, you go to Mobile, Alabama, and for those of you that don't know, look at Mobile, Alabama on a map. Half of that circle would be in the water.
Yeah.
So you're not going to find any players there. And so that was different. So you add up all those things, and again, it was a great experience. South Alabama is a wonderful job, but it's a bad fit for me. So the other example I can use, like a guy like Ryan Conwell, who had an awesome year for us. Well, his freshman year at South Florida, I think he averaged 4.5 points a game. And people are completely shocked at the numbers he put up in 1 year here. Well, we recruited him on the front end, and we felt like he could be an all-league guy. We just happened to miss on him the first time, and we got him the second time. Again, it goes back to he's a really good player, but he wasn't in a great system for him. I'm not saying the system that they ran was bad. I'm saying it was a bad fit for him. But when he came here and you have a really good player that's in a really good system, the results kind of speak for themselves. And so what I would say, I know this is a long-winded answer to your question, but what I would say to people is I feel like I'm in a great situation, a great fit, being at home, being in my own backyard. And I think we're going to put together a team that competes year in and year out, to go to the NCAA tournament. Our goal every year, and I told this in our first meeting last Sunday, our goal for the year, and this is going to be the goal every year, is when we step on that bus to drive over to Arch Madness in St. Louis, is we feel like we have a team good enough to cut down the nets. That is simply our goal every single year.
That's awesome. And that's definitely something that Sycamore fans should be positive about and excited about, because before Josh Schertz, Indiana State was struggling for a couple of years, and now it's like had these one really great year and one pretty good year. Now it's like they want to see it continue. And I think you talking about like being in a place where you're comfortable is huge. Yep. And we see that with some other coaches, like Mike Woodson at Indiana cares about being in Indiana. Matt Painter cares about being at Purdue. Roger Powell, he has Valpo ties. He cares about Valpo. So it's like you are invested in not just being a coach, but specifically the spot where you are. And that gets me excited about it for sure.
Well, and again, you make a great point. That's one of the things that, for me, South Alabama, it was, hiring a staff was hard. Here, I felt like I hit a grand slam with the staff here. My associate head coach, Mark Schlesinger, was coaching the head coach at University of New Orleans, but, he wanted the opportunity to come back home. He'd been out of the state for 25 years at different stops, and, he's from Bloomington, Indiana, and he understands, the value of, being, in Indiana and what that means, being able to get Jake Odom to come back. He's a Hall of Famer at Indiana State, and, the fans in the community, absolutely, adore him. So to have guys like that on your staff that really want to be here, and, I was able to retain Justin Furr, those things all go into adding up to help us, become a really good competitive team a little bit quicker. And that was the goal. Obviously we're in a rebuild. There's no secret about that. You don't lose, your top 8 guys on paper and don't think you're in a rebuild mode, but that doesn't mean we can't be competitive, and we'll see what that looks like. But our goal is, again, to be competitive enough when we head to St. Louis to feel like we have a chance to cut down the nets. And I think what you're going to see in our team is early on, we'll probably struggle just with the lack of experience. But I think as you go and take snapshots month by month by month, you're going to see a team that really grows rapidly. And like I said, I think we've got enough pieces that, come March, we're going to be right there in the hunt to cut down some nets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we'll be obviously rooting for you and the Sycamores. You touched on it a little bit, but you got hired kind of later in the cycle. A lot of the scoring hit the portal. Your top 8 players hit the portal. Definitely common, we think, after a successful season at the mid-major level. And also with a coaching change, right? A head coach leaving is always gonna, trigger some radars for some players. But what was your philosophy in recruiting? And how did you go about that, filling out the roster, but also filling out your staff? You talked about several coaches wanted to come back home. Talk about that process. Did they reach out to you and say, hey, I want to come back? Or do you just reach out and cold call coaches and say, hey, you're from Indiana, want to come home?
No. So with Coach Schlesinger, him and I have a great relationship. We've known each other for almost 30 years. And, we talk on a weekly, bi-weekly basis anyway. So being able to kind of have a pulse on the whole situation, from that standpoint, we talked, if the job were to come open, I asked him, I said, would you have an interest in coming back? And, he said, hey, keep me in the loop. Let's keep talking. I'll pray about it, think about it. Got to talk to my family and things like that. And, with Jake Odom, a guy like him, I reached out to Greg Lansing and talked to Greg about Jake and, some different things. And, to be able to pick his brain and he understands, what it's like to be a player here at Indiana State. I mean, you could argue he's one of the most decorated, top 2 or 3 decorated players in all of Indiana State, history, with his wins and, the way he, was beloved by the community. So, that part, those guys I really targeted and, was thankful to get them. Once we had a staff assembled, it was a little bit easier to go after some of these recruits. We did a great job with what was available. We had 9 guys that we brought in on official visits during that span, and we got 8 of them. And
nice.
That's hitting on a pretty high percentage. And we talked about this kind of off the air earlier. If we would have gotten the job a couple weeks earlier, obviously you don't have that NIT run, so that helped tremendously. But there's probably half a dozen guys that we would have targeted, really tried to recruit and get involved with, but we were just too late. They had either committed or they were down to their final school or two, and that's part of it. And you understand that. And ultimately, we wanted to see how many guys we could retain, and we were able to retain Aaron Gray, Derek Vorst, and Jaden Daughtry. So those 3 guys to build upon that. And the other thing I wanted to do, and I told this to our staff, I didn't want to go out and get 6 or 7 seniors, one and done guys that were out of eligibility, because I didn't want to be in this same boat. It's just the nature of the business. 5 years ago, you were recruiting 3 or 4 guys every year. Now it's going to be probably 5, maybe 6 a year is going to be the new norm, but that's okay. You understand that and value that. But what I didn't want to have happen, and where I felt like Indiana State needs to be successful, we've got to be a program that develops and retains young talent. And when I say that, it's not necessarily, we may not retain them for 4 years, but we've got to retain them for multiple years, whether that's 2 or 3, to build that continuity. And so in doing so, I wanted a couple older guys, which we needed to get, but I wanted to have some young guys that could grow, develop, play through mistakes, and learn and get better. And also guys that wanted to be here. So all that kind of wrapped up. We ended up with 4 seniors and no juniors and 8 freshmen and sophomores. So those freshmen and sophomores are going to get a chance to grow and develop and learn. And last year, unfortunately, with our 3 returning guys, they didn't get a chance to do that. And this year they're going to have that opportunity. So I think you're going to see with those 3 guys in particular that the Sycamore fans are most familiar with. Those 3 guys are kind of have that chip on their shoulder. They're competitive. They want to prove that they can play minutes at this level and impact winning. So through the first week, I've been really pleased with those 3 old guys, returning guys, if you will, in their approach and how they've really been competitive, but also at the same time, they've embraced all these new guys. And, it's going to be a fun summer. We got a long ways to go, but, so far, the early returns, we got a chance to be pretty good when it's all said and done. I really believe that.
That's what, I mean, we think that's what's going to happen, right? Like we're really optimistic. Real quick, I saw on Twitter yesterday or today that Vorst is a Rubik's Cube whiz.
He is.
Is he?
Yes. Yep. He is. He's got that pattern memorized. And I think, what'd he say? I think his fastest to solve it's like under 40 seconds.
Wow.
Pretty remarkable.
I think I could spend 2 hours with a Rubik's Cube and not figure out how to solve it. So
I would probably spend about 2 minutes and then throw it out the window of a car or something. Be done with it.
Yeah. Saying 2 hours is very generous. I don't think I would last. I don't think I'd make it that long.
You're just that that's your competitive nature coming out.
Yeah. I mean, I've debated getting one. Now, you know what? By the end of next season, I'm gonna go down to Terre Haute and I'm gonna challenge Vorst to a Rubik's Cube competition.
Wow.
I love it. Love to see
that. We'll go live for that, Jaren.
All right, hold me to it.
So we kind of talked about this with scheduling. You said you've been doing scheduling for like 20 years, but we always hear about how scheduling is tough at the mid-major level, especially when you're like a Missouri Valley team, and especially one that has been successful. So it's going to be even harder after, how good you guys were last year, even though, Josh Schertz has moved on. So like, what's it going to take to get people to the Holman Center? How are you approaching that? I know you talked about, doing a home and home with IU Indy. I know this like A10 school that, you might have ties to that maybe would be willing to, maybe you could convince someone over there to come over, but maybe maybe not. He knows exactly what it's like to play in the Holman Center.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to see the Billikens over in the Holman Center anytime soon. But it's one of those things where a lot of it is out of your control. All you can do on our end is, ask the question, hey, do you want to play? And you got to have somebody on the other end pick up the phone and say yes. You got to have the right dates. And, people ask me this all the time. And, how about playing Butler in a home and home?
Mm-hmm.
And, I would love, there's no question. I would sign that up right now tonight to play Butler in a home and home. But, the reality, and I get both sides of it. And this is the hard thing that, fans don't always understand. And it's frustrating for us mid-majors. If you're a school like a Butler or IU or Purdue, there's only so many opportunities that you're going to play away from your home arena. You already have 20 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to play in a couple made for TV events, whether it's the Big Ten Big East Challenge or Big Ten ACC Challenge or whatever that case might be. You're going to play in some MTE tournament that has now everybody's wanting to play in the $1 million NIL
out in
tournament.
Vegas.
So
Yeah.
you've got that, and you add all those up, and now you're left with about 5 games left. And most of those Power Fives, all they're going to do is, go out and buy, teams that are 250 in the net or worse.
Get some games they got to win.
Yeah. And I don't blame them at all. I perfectly understand that because, they're buying those games that they don't have to travel. They're filling up their arenas. So it does make a lot of sense. And, on those rare occasions, you get a home and home, it's extremely lucky. And really the Michigan State game for us, obviously we were only playing there. That wasn't supposed to happen. We try to play one guarantee game a year, and we had already scheduled Alabama. And, we were having trouble finding that last game. And we were in the middle of June, and Kevin Pauga, who does the scheduling at Michigan State, reached out and said, "Hey, we had a game fall through at the last minute. Would you guys be interested in playing?" And, we talked numbers and date, and I said, "Well, give me 2 minutes." So I called Josh and I said, "Hey, Josh, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I found us a game." And he said, "Well, what's the bad news?" And I said, "Well, it's at Michigan State." And he said, "What do you know about playing at Michigan State?" And I said, "Well, I know I've never been dumb enough to schedule a game up there, but I do think it'd be pretty cool to play." So,
the first time since '79?
Yeah,
I think that was incredible.
It was a great event, great game, and but again, it just the nature of scheduling, and I understand fans get frustrated, and they want to see really good games, but it is really difficult as a mid-major, to get Power 5 teams to come to your place to play, and it's unfortunate. And it really, like I said, over the last 5 years has been a lot harder when you get these mega conferences. Back 5-10 years ago, when leagues were only playing 16 or 18 conference games, you had more games that you had to schedule, so you had more of those opportunities. But now it's really difficult just because there are few games to schedule now for those Power Fives.
It's probably doesn't help that you guys were successful pretty recently at your in-state matchups because, you won all your in-state matchups this past year. I think the last time you guys played Butler, you won. And I think the last time you guys played at Indiana, you won as well. So maybe you were a little bit too successful.
Yeah, you know what though? You're not going to trade that. So, but I will say, and again, talking to the Indiana State fans, and they'll hear me say this constantly, calls will be made. We're going to try to play, those type of games, and maybe we'll get lucky here, and it'll work one of these days where a team is like, yeah, you know what, we'll take that road game, and we'll come to the home center and play, and but like I said, I can assure fans it won't be because we don't ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense.
And, I think your schedule last year was, good. You had that Alabama game, and Avila was out in that game, right? He didn't play.
Yep.
So that's a game you could have won. Michigan State had some foul trouble, I think, in that game too. There was some foul issues in that game. Only lost by, could have won that game. I mean, you win either one of those games, you're in the NCAA.
Yeah, you are. Sure. Yeah, you win either one of those games, you're in. And really though, you go back to it, and if you don't have the perfect storm happen in that last 36 hours, we're still in.
Yeah.
So it's just scheduling's so fickle. You may schedule a certain team and think they're going to be good, and they get hit by the transfer portal, and instead of them being a borderline top 100 team like you think, all of a sudden they're 250, or it works the other way. You schedule an opponent that they may not be as good, and they were able to get a bunch of transfers in, and they're a top 100 team. So I think in this day and age with scheduling, with roster movement, you're going to see a lot of randomness with that, and it'll be hard. It's becoming much harder to predict how good teams will be from year to year, and that's why I know there's teams in our league that, like ourselves, that still have 6-7 games to schedule, and we're in the middle of June.
That's gonna be fun.
It's not. No, not
really. So we talked about it a little bit, at the very beginning. Last year, the Sycamores shot and made a ton of threes. In general, just scored a ton. You talked about the offensive mentality, the offensive approach. What is this new iteration of Indiana State basketball going to look like on the court? We thought that defense could have been a little stronger last year. What is the staff, the team, what is everyone doing to bolster the Sycamore defense?
That's going to be, a focus. We do have to, guard in stretches a little bit better. But if you look at our numbers analytically, we ended up number 1 in the Missouri Valley in defensive efficiency. Mm-hmm. So, those numbers do get skewed at times when you're scoring, 80 plus points a game and you give up 72, you still win versus, okay, hey, we only score 65 and only give up 62. Well, you might say we're a little bit better defensively. So, sometimes those numbers can get skewed, especially with pace of play. Yeah. But, ultimately for us, offensively, we're not going to change a whole lot. We still want to try to score 80 plus points a game and still average, 16 plus assists per game. Now, easier said than done.
Yeah.
You got to have the pieces, to do that, but that's what we've tried to recruit to. And, we're going to, push the pace. We're going to start off, we talk about all the time. And you said this stat earlier, we were number 1 in the country in 2-point field goal percentage. And a big reason our offense is so successful is we constantly talk about getting non-dribble layups. That's the highest valued shot in basketball, is a non-dribble layup. So, we're preaching that, we're talking about that. And then, for us is being able to catch and shoot from 3. We've got a lot of good shooters on our team. We talk about the shot profile. We're wanting, hunting rim threes and catch and shoot, or rim layups and then catch and shoot threes. And then obviously getting to the free throw line. That message is going to be loud and clear. Our guys have done a great job in week 1, staying out of the mid-range, not shooting very many mid-range shots. But our defense, boy, you don't want to see our defense right now. We'll get there. We wouldn't be number 1 in the Missouri Valley, as of this week defensively. But, certainly I do think we have a chance to be a pretty good defensive team. We've got some good size in the post, and we've got a lot of size and length on the perimeter. We've got to get stronger. We do have some young guys that need to have a great summer and fall in the weight room and add some weight. But, certainly we've got some pieces to be a pretty good defensive team as well.
Yeah. I mean, so maybe about a month ago, 2 months ago, Adam and I did an episode where each of us drafted a single player from all 11 schools in Indiana to build our roster. Right. And he and I both, we loved, like we said earlier, Indiana State's brand of basketball. We drafted with that similar mentality of, guys who can shoot the 3, guys that can attack the rim, guys that can get open down low for those, layups. So again, we love it. So we're excited to see it continue down with the Sycamores.
For the record, I drafted Jason Kent onto my team. That was my pick from the Sycamores.
That's a great pick, and I think it's obviously we're going to miss all those guys, but like I said, he's was one of the most unique players that I've coached, in my 25 years, in that he could impact the game in so many ways without running a set play for him.
That's exactly why I picked him.
Yeah. I took Larry.
And Julian's another one. So those two guys, I mean, again, that's why, those are two of the, fan favorites that, those guys were very special.
So, talked about guys that left, but roster overhaul, who are the familiar faces that people are going to see on the bench again this year on the floor? And who are some of the new guys that people can get excited about?
Well, I think it's really too early to, specifically identify guys, but I think what fans, should come to expect is guys that are going to be great teammates, guys that are going to work hard for each other. It's a team that the fans are going to be proud of. I think one of the greatest joys of last year's team was nobody cared who got the credit. And at the end, winning takes care of everything. And, this is one of the things we talk about in recruiting. All 5 starters were on one of the Missouri Valley All-League teams.
Yep.
Xavier Bledson was 6th man of the year. Coach Schertz was coach of the year. Winning takes care of a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Takes care of a lot of issues. But the joy, though, at which our bench showed, I mean, it would have been very easy. We played, 6, 7 guys, maybe occasionally an 8th guy would get on the floor. Players 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on, they could have been upset, disgruntled, not into the team. And they were very much appreciated. And, their work on the scout team and in practice, we talked about that on a daily basis. And, those guys really, showed what it was like to be great teammates. And, we're going to have a team that's like that and that fans are going to be proud of. And, singling out different guys right now, I don't, it's probably not fair to them because they're all still learning. They're under this learning curve. But the 3 guys that the fans are most familiar with, in Derek and Aaron and JD, those 3 guys, though, have all come in with a great attitude. They're working hard. They're doing the right things. They're trying to help these new guys. And I'm really excited to see, not only those 3 get an opportunity to grow and develop, but where we can get as a team. And again, I think the fans are going to be excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Adam and I are both excited as well. It's going to be fun. Talk about the fans. One, Indiana State fans are incredible. They were anytime we posted anything Indiana State related on our Twitter, it just exploded. It did so well because the fans just come out in forces.
I think they're half of our following base.
That's good though. Hey, there's a lot of coaches that sit up there in the in the stands and watch. So I'm going to get a lot of free advice, I think, this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But in general, what's the vibe in Terre Haute like about this upcoming season? And then, after that, is there anything else that you want to tell the Sycamore faithful?
People are excited. It's great. People have asked about coming in to, watch open workouts and different things. And we've had the guys out in the community a little bit, and I'm getting text messages about, meeting the new guys. And, we had camp last week. So there's about 80 campers that got to interact with our guys. And we actually have our 2nd week of camp this week, and there's almost 140 campers this week. A sellout for us is 150. So that opportunity for the young kids to be involved around our new guys is awesome. Last year when after a home win, to see 150, 200, 250 kids lined up on the court, giving high fives and guys were signing autographs. That's what we want to keep. that brings the excitement, that brings the juice, to the Holman Center. And, it starts in the summer with these young kids getting the opportunity to know our players here at camp. So it's been really fun to kind of stand off to the side and watch these kids interact with these new guys. I've gotten so many emails and messages about, hey, we missed Julian Larry or Jason Kent, but it's so fun to get to know your new guys. They're great guys. They work hard. So I'm just excited to see the potential. And that's the one thing, I would say to the fans and the people, here in the Wabash Valley, and you're going to see a team that is going to be competitive. The results are ultimately going to speak for themselves. That's how this business works. But it's going to be a team that continues to get better. We are a young group, and that's okay. We're going to get better. We're going to work hard. I'm excited about the direction. There's a ton of potential. And, again, ultimately, we want to be good enough to go over to St. Louis and win a few games and cut down a net. That's ultimately our goal. So to be playing our best basketball then, is where we want to get. But after 1 week, absolutely love our group.
Love it. Love it. Well, that's, those are all the questions that we had for you, Coach. Again, we're really excited that you took the time, and you're in the middle. This practice started last week. You're in the middle of summer season, if you call it that. But we appreciate you taking the time, especially on Father's Day.
Yeah.
No, you guys are welcome. It's fun. It's what is it? 10:20 on a Sunday night, and I'll be back in the gym at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So, it doesn't. When you love your job, it really doesn't feel like work. So, getting a chance to talk basketball, coach it, be around young people. It's great. I love it. I love every minute of it. It's great to be in Terre Haute and, just ready to, keep working with these guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Coach.
Yep. You guys are more welcome. Thank you so much.
Yep. Have a good one.
I think one of my favorite things he said is probably that their goal is to head to St. Louis every single season with the expectation of cutting down the nets.
Yeah. I mean, that's what your goal should be, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they got snubbed from the tournament. We talked about that. Well, cutting down the nets, there's no excuse. They're there every year and they deserve to be. So I think that's the right mentality. And that's, I think, what we expected from Coach Graves once we found out he got the job.
Absolutely.
Well, anything else, Adam, or it's
No.
Father's Day. I know you've got I guess your kids are probably asleep, but
I'm, just glad that we got to have him on. Really excited to see what, Indiana State looks like. I think Indiana State fans, be patient because, like you said, there are 8, freshman and sophomore players. So you had a team that was building on success last year. They're going to be doing a rebuild, and you're going to have a lot of new pieces trying to work it out and work through a lot of, adversity. And I think that come the end of the season, they're going to be rolling. So we'll be back next week. Who knows what we'll be talking about? I don't know. Anything basketball. We'll be back.
Yep, absolutely. Well, the clock is showing quadruple zeros, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in with the State of Basketball podcast. We'll see you next week. Don't know what we're going to talk about, but we'll see you. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.